Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. All right. So number 20. Yatra paramate chittam, yatra uparamate chittam, niruddham yoga sevaya, yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrahyam atindriyam veti yatra nachaivayam sthitaschalati tattvatah. Yatra uparamati chittam, where the chitta is rejoicing or is becoming, how to say, approaching stillness, literally, becoming still, becoming niruddham, totally stopped. Silent and still, we can say. Uparamati literally has two meanings, to rejoice and to become still. That means uparam. To cease from motion, to stop, to cease from action, to pause, to stop, to leave off, to desist, to give up, to wait for, to cause, to render quiet. So there is no in the dictionary to be happy, but only to be quiet and inactive. Well, in the contextual meaning, to be quiet and is to be happy. So to say, so where the chitta is stopping, being still and silent, or niruddham, we spoke about this. Yoga sevaya, by the service of yoga, by yatra uparamate, yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati, and where indeed he sees himself by himself, atmana atmanam pashyan atmani tushyati, he is rejoicing in the self, in himself. And there is always yatra, 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 and there is no tatra yet there. Yeah? So it's kind of sentence which is to be continued in the next shloka. So let me read what is here written. That in which the mind becomes silent. Oops, sorry. I wanted to increase to see better. That in which mind becomes silent and still by the practice of yoga, that in which the self is seen within in the self, within in the self by the self, seen not as it is mistranslated falsely or partially by the mind and represented to us through the ego, but self-perceived by the self, svaprakasha, so by its own light. The self is seeing itself by its own light, and the soul is satisfied. Sukham atyantikam yat, and that in which the soul knows its own true and exceeding bliss. Sukham, bliss or happiness, atyantikam, infinite, yat, which that is indeed that. buddhi grahyam, which is perceived by the buddhi, or intelligence in this case it is translated, and is beyond the senses. Atindriyam, ati beyond, indriyam, beyond the senses. Buddhi is usually beyond sense, because buddhi is a higher mind, or we can translate it as pure reason. It is not the sense mind, it is not manas. Manas is connected, the mind, sense mind is connected to indriyas. Buddhi is beyond indriyas, as it were. I don't believe it totally that it is beyond indriyas, but it is not dependent on what indriyas are feeding it with. So the pure reason can think in terms of concepts and ideas and visions, free from senses, free from immediate perception of things. Manas is a sense mind. It depends on the perception. It cannot think in terms of concepts. It perceives. It does not conceive. Whereas buddhi conceives, free from immediate perception of senses. So it is atindriyam. Vetti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalati tattvatah, wherein established it can no longer fall away from the spiritual truth of its being. Vetti yatra na cha eva ayam stitach chalati tattvatah. It is not chalati, na chalati, in principle tattvatah. It is steady, ayam stitach, and cannot move away, cannot deviate from the truth of itself. Most probably this is the definition of the major realization of our being. Yeah? Because when we realize ourselves, we don't need any other proof that it is that. Somebody was asking, and Arjuna was asking Krishna to give him the evidence of the realization, how the realized soul behaves, how does he walk, talk, sit, yeah, and so on. And Sri Krishna doesn't answer this question even, because it is a behaviorism. He tries to understand the inner change by the outer behavior. It has nothing to do with outer behavior. The only proof of self-realization is that you come to the state, steady state, from which there is no deviation, no falling away. Now, when we realize that state from which there is no fall away, we know immediately that we found the self. We don't need any other proof. We don't need anybody to tell us what it is. Neither our mind, nor our feelings, nor our body, nor some guru or some, God. May it be anybody. You don't need it, because you have a full self-evidence of realization. Somewhere Pavitra asks the mother about this. How would I know that it is that? Sri Aurobindo. He asks Sri Aurobindo in conversations with Pavitra. How would I know that I realized finally? Sri Aurobindo says, oh, you would know, don't worry. There is no way to be mistaken when you realize that. So as long as there is a quest, whether it is that or not, that means it is not yet that. So here it's also self-evidence.
Well, beautifully said, Vladimir. Thank you. Of course, this was a more difficult week for me, and now all of a sudden I'm understanding the separation where I was basically dealing with my senses. So this is certainly helpful. Now this will be able to keep those things in check, and I could have the experience, feel it, and put it aside and say, this is what it is. It's my senses. This is where I'm headed. I'm headed to the self-realization. So I need to stay more in that space and just know what it is. Almost like a rainy day. It's like, okay, I have to deal with this today. And
absolutely. And the feelings, the senses, they will always come and they will always trouble us, always. There is no state in which they will not come to trouble. But since we realize that state from which there is no falling away, these troubles will not be troublesome. They will be a little kind of, going through, like Shubindu describes, like the birds flying through the windless air. They will. Something. So you have this windless space, and the birds are flying through. So it would be like this. There would be no disturbance of the being.
Right. Well, I just recently read something where it said every experience, comes to an end. So whether that's, a state of bliss or a moment of joy or a moment of sadness, as soon as that's interrupted, that happens. It's a lot easier when it happens that maybe if you're in meditation, all of a sudden it's a moment of quiet. You're not even aware that it's quiet. And all of a sudden you hear a noise and you come out of it and you go, oh, I wasn't even paying attention. Those things are easily disrupted. But, when you're in a moment of sadness or in a moment of joy, you're getting drunk with that senses, and you got to be able to be aware. I have to become aware of that and say, this is what it is, and let it be. I can let it flower. Dr. Lod would always say, let your emotions flower, let it come up, let it mature. If you hold back and keep it in your body, you get stuck. So it's a whole nother thought process. But I lost that realization this week. So nothing worked. Everything was like, why doesn't anything work? You go buy eggs and you buy a couple of them are cracked. It's like, what? So simple stuff like that. Simple life things. Yeah.
Okay, 622. Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tatach. This is again the description of the same realization. Yasmin sthito nadukhena gurunapi vichalyate. It's exactly, we already discussed all these. So having realized which, yam labdhva, having obtained, having received, gotten, which, na aparam labham manyate, cha aparam labham nadhikam tatach. There is no other gain which one can consider to be bigger than this. So you cannot imagine, or you cannot bring anything more important or greater than this realization. Just can't make it. Even if you try. You can try, but it won't work. Hi, Lynn. It will not work. You cannot compete with this realization. You cannot compare it to any other gain in your life. What is interesting here that this idea, Benedetta, hi Ben. Yeah, Benedetta was here for a few days. Now it's like to see her again on the screen.
Strange.
Yes. Yeah. So the idea is that to have a greater gain is impossible. From this, and somewhere in I wanted to compare with what Mother said, but it just disappeared from my head. It will come back. So we just spoke about it. Having received which, having obtained, realized which, there is no greater realization possible from it. Yasmin sthitach, and staying in which, nadukhena gurunapi, one cannot be vichalyate, cannot be moved by any suffering, even very heavy and very difficult. So even very profound suffering cannot make you move if you're staying in this realization. So let me read what Sri Aurobindo says here. That is the greatest of all gains and the treasure beside which all lose their value. So, and the treasure beside which all lose their value, wherein established he is not disturbed by the fiercest assault of mental grief, of the most, it's, how would you pronounce this fieriest? Fieriest.
Good.
Yeah. The most, how to say, the heaviest grief, yeah, or the most powerful assault of the mental grief. Gurunapi, even the most heavy dukhena, even the most heavy grief or suffering, you cannot be moved. Navichalyate. Tam vidyat dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samjnitam. It is the putting away of the contract with pain, the divorce of the mind's marriage with grief, the firm winning of this inalienable spiritual bliss is yoga. It is the divine union. This yoga is to be resolutely practiced without yielding to any discouragement by difficulty or failure, until their release, until the bliss of nirvana is secured as an eternal possession. I think this is more the description which is taken from the essays on the Gita, but literally this half of the shloka means tam vidyat, having known that, dukkha samyoga viyogam, yoga samjnitam. Yoga is called samjnitam, the viyoga, the disunion. Union is called the disconnection from connection with dukkha. And this is very interesting because it fits perfectly for the definition of yoga by Buddhists. You know, the whole Buddhism is built on one proposition that we have to do yoga only for one reason, to get rid of suffering. So here, this definition, the yoga is defined as disconnection from the connection to suffering. Look how beautiful it is said. Dukkha samyoga, the connection with suffering, viyogam, the disconnection. Yoga samjnitam, that is the definition of yoga. The definition of union is disunion with with suffering. It's a bit complicated definition, no? Typical for Buddhism. Yeah. Okay. Now this tam yogam, tam samjnitam, is coming from before, from here. From number 20, yatra, where the chitta is stopping, by the service, by the action of yoga, where he sees himself by himself, and in himself where he is happy, where or what is the happiness infinite, beyond indriyas, in the pure reason, buddhi graham, or captured by the higher mind, or by the mind beyond senses, atindriyam. Vetti yatra chaivayam sthitah chalati tattvadah. And where he, when he stays in it, cannot know himself deviating or moving away from that in principle. Yam labdhva, which having gained, there is no other gain greater than this, in which staying, there is no movement, or there is, in which staying he cannot be moved even by fierce grief or assault. That one should know is definition of yoga. Now it's only in 23 comes the solution for all those relative sentences, where, what, 3 shlokas are going on, and in the 4th shloka finally we have the resolution of this. That is indeed the yoga, which is disconnecting the connection to suffering. Somebody once asked, I can't forget this, but what will happen? Why you are saying to us that these, liberated beings, it was question about Krishnamurti. We can take him into jail, we can put him and he will die as normal people. Why do you say that he is so extraordinary? So we can make him suffer. Why do you say that he is not? And the answer was very interesting. The answer was, yes, of course you can kill his body. You can destroy his tissue and make miserable for his mental, vital, and physical existence, but you cannot change his nature. This realization cannot be changed or altered. So this is the inner realization, from which there is no smaller gain. It is the ultimate, from which there is nothing else. So that's why it is called the disconnection from the connection to suffering. Yes, suffering will be there, of course, but I will not be connected to it. I am connected to the self, to my self-realization. I'm not connected to the suffering as if I am that suffering. So this is the liberation. Sanishchayana yoktavyo yoga anirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvan asheshatah manasaiva indriya gramam viniyamya samantatah shanaich uparamed buddhya dhariti grihitaya atma samstham manah kritva nakimchit api chintayet. Shall I read first the English? That will be easier for you, and then I translate word by word. Abandoning without any exception or residue all the desires born of the desire wheel, and holding the senses by the mind, so that they shall not run to all sides after their usual disorderly and restless habit. one should slowly cease from mental action by a buddhi held in the grasp of fixity, and having fixed the mind in the higher self, one should not think of anything at all. This is also an interesting thing, abandoning without any exception or residue all the desires born from the desire will, and holding the senses by the mind so that they shall not run to all sides. This renunciation of all the desires, good or bad, doesn't matter. There is no difference between good and bad in terms of yoga. There can be very good desires to help humanity, to help others, to do good for others. Yeah? They are all desires still, which are taking us away from ourselves. Okay, let us go word by word. Sa nishchayana yoktavya. He should be yoked, united, nishchayana, decisively united. Or that is yoga, sa yogah. Nishchayana yoktavya should be decisively yoked. Anirvinna chetasa, by the consciousness which is not deviating, which is not shrinking. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman, all the kamas, all the desires which appear from sankalpa prabhavan, which are the result of intention. Tyaktva, having left all the desires produced by intentions, asheshatach, without remainder, sarvan, all the desires without remainder having abandoned, having left behind, manasai vendriya gramam viniyamya samantatach, and by the mind, manasa, indeed, eva, indriya gramam, the whole number of, or the whole group of, wait a minute, where is my text? The whole group of, here it is, the whole host of indriyas, of the whole group of faculties of consciousness, of senses, viniyamya, having controlled the whole group of senses by the mind, samantatach, from all sides, from every possible end, samantatach, or totally having controlled them. Shanaich, slowly, step by step, uparamed, one should stop, one should cease. Buddhiya dhriti grihitaya, by the buddhi, with the help of higher mind, dhriti grihitaya, established in the steadiness, atma samstham, manach kritva, having established mind in the state of the self, nakimchit api chintayet, one should not think of anything. I think this is the methodology of how to come to the nirvanic state. these two shlokas. If we follow this methodology, we will succeed in nirvana sooner or later. Rather sooner than later. Yeah? Nice, no? What is beautiful for me here is this manach kritva atma samstham, having established the sense mind in the place of the self. Basically, sense mind, which is connected to all our senses, indriyas, who is the synthesizer of indriyas, has to stop being in charge. It has to become a channel, a pure channel of the self. It has to surrender itself to the higher Atman. So having established mind in the place of the self, our higher self, one should not think of anything. Totally empty mind. But how? One should stop to think gradually, not immediately. One should cast away thoughts with the help of the holding of the higher mind. What is this holding or steadiness of the higher mind? The mind which is beyond sense mind. By the way, it reminds me of Sri Aurobindo's yoga, what Sri Aurobindo did. His meditation, which he got from Vishnu Bhaskar Lale, his guru, who taught him how to meditate. He told him that you observe your thoughts, yeah, first, and then when they come in, you just see them coming in. Don't identify yourself with them. Let them flow through you, and you can see them as if objectively, as if not involved, as if you are separated from them. Observe them coming in. And then when you are totally established in this observation, you cast them away. Cast them out of your inner space. This is exactly here. Shanaich, shanaich, step by step, uparamet, you should stop thinking these thoughts. Buddhya dhriti grihitaya, with the help of the higher mind, where he established himself over the head, steadily holding there in that spot. That's exactly what Sri Aurobindo did. He described it beautifully. He said, and I felt that I was rising above the head into a high place from which I could clearly see, as he says, that one thought came through, another is coming through, and the next thought is coming in. And I cast them away. And when you cast them away one by one, and hold that, nakimchit chintayet, thinking of nothing, holding the empty space only, establishing the mind, manas, in the place of Atman, so to say, making it a channel without activity, without synthesizing anything what indriyas are feeding you with, then after some time, he says, this peace, the tremendous silence descended upon him. And that was the nirvanic experience. From that time on, there was no return. So not to think in the mind is quite a task. It can be achieved. Here is the description. in 5 lines. So Sri Aurobindo achieved that nirvanic state in 3 days. After 3 days of meditating with his guru. And then he describes he looked at this world and himself as if he was in the movie. Everything was unreal. The silence was so overwhelming that everything in this world looked as if it was in the movie. There was distance from everything, including himself. He saw himself as unreal. And only later, many months later, he says, the things started to come back. But they occupied their proper places, their true places. Before they were mixed up, now they could find their true places in his life. Of course, this is the method of Indian yoga, to learn not to think and to hold to that state of mind firmly. State of mind free from thoughts. All right. And then, next. Yato yato nishcharati manaschanchalam asthiram tatas tatach niyam yaitad atman yeva vasham nayet. Whereas, wherever, or whenever, better to say, the restless and unquiet mind goes forth, or literally from whatever place, from whatever reason, the manas is moving and unsteady, goes off the sense mind. From there, he should put him constantly under control of the self. So this was the yoga, to put manas, sense mind, under self's control, subjection in the self, in the higher self. Whatever the restless and unquiet mind goes forth, whenever the restless and unquiet mind goes forth, it should be controlled and brought into subjection in the self. And that's what Sri Aurobindo says. You think it is easy for the tapasvin, for the yogin, to sit and to fight with his mind? You think it's an easy task to fight your mind, your thoughts, to bring every movement of the sense mind into subjection in the self? It's not an easy task, it seems. Somebody was saying that yogis do nothing, sitting there, meditating, sleeping. He said, you think it's easy to control your mind? To make it free from thoughts? You can try and see for yourself whether you will do it. You will rather go and do some business, I think, than go into this state of trying to control your mind. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. So when the mind is thoroughly quieted, Then there comes upon the yogin stainless, passionless, the highest bliss of the soul that has become the Brahman. Brahma Bhutam, Akalmasham, free from stain. He comes upaiti Shanta Rajasam to the space, pure, peaceful space, Brahma Bhutam, which became full of the presence of the Spirit, Akalmasham, without a stain, pure. So it is when his mind is thoroughly quieted, then there comes upon the yogi stainless, passionless, and highest bliss of the soul that has become the Brahman. That's exactly what happened to Sri Aurobindo. What descended upon him, he says, it was the Spirit, the silent Brahman. He calls that realization the realization of the silent Brahman, the descent of silence, total. You don't have to fight with this. By the way, partially he made a gift for the mother, you know this, when she arrived with Paul Richard, with her husband. First time they met with Sri Aurobindo, she made pranam, and then they met in his room. Paul Richard and Sri Aurobindo were discussing things, and she was silent. She was sitting on the floor next to Sri Aurobindo, and then she felt that there was this tremendous peace coming into her mind. And she says that she was fighting for many years to make this mind totally quiet. But being near to Sri Aurobindo, she got from him this gift of a silent mind. She said after that, there was never a need to fight her own mind. It was always quiet. It would be nice to have such a gift, a quiet mind. But even for the mother, it was difficult to gain. It's kind of interesting, what kind of realization it could be, this quiet mind, which is naturally quiet. Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashah sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. So, thus freed from stain of passion and putting himself constantly into yoga, the yogin easily and happily enjoys the touch of the Brahman, which is an exceeding bliss. So the one who is thus yoked constantly with himself, sada atmanam yunjan evam, in this way, the yogi, free from stain, vigata kalmashah, free from imperfection, from calamity, from this muddy movements of consciousness. Sukhena, happily, Brahma samsparsham, the touches of the spirit, atyantam, infinite, sukham, happiness, ashnute, enjoys. or realizes the infinite happiness born from the touches of the Spirit. What are these touches of the Spirit? It's another thing. So it seems it's not a constant kind of tamasic state in which he enjoys his peace. It is something else. It's dynamic. The touches of the Spirit means that every time there is another dimension, another depth of the Spirit, every time he comes to some experience. I think this is shifting towards more what we know as spiritual realization of the dynamic Brahman. That's why Brahma Samsparsham, the touches of the Spirit, because it's no more static Brahman. Touches are not saying about static state. These are more dynamic events. Could it be that this is already the dynamic view because it is later? So having thus united, being united constantly with himself, yogi who is free from imperfection gets the enjoyment infinite born from the touches of the Spirit. It could be that this is another developmental stage which Sri Aurobindo describes after having this nirvanic stage where he saw himself as in a movie and the whole world is unreal. The things started to come back to him, but all of them were in the right place. So one by one. So these are the touches of the Brahman which are bringing the enjoyment of the world in more concrete way, in the unique way of everything being in its right place. It could be, no? Okay, we will stop here, otherwise I'm... would you like to maybe make some overview of what we did today? Or some ideas? Share with us your ideas about it. Or maybe some questions, something is not clear. We started from 6:20.
Well, it seems as though my thoughts have been and work has been along this line for several weeks, even though I haven't been in the group. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, this is a miracle of these inner, how to say, movements of consciousness. Somehow they match with our life in some way or another. I also wonder always how beautifully everything is, how to say, coinciding.
I have a question, but I'm not sure how to formulate it. You said the desire of helping others has to be also cast off, right?
Oh, yes.
You mentioned that as an example. And I always thought to leave that because I thought it's a psychic kind of movement, kind of, you know, this seeing something in others, or I don't know how to say it, but I thought that should stay.
Of course, among all the desires, the best would be to help others because it is a sacrificial movement. Yeah, you give yourself without, and that is, in that sense, self-giving is the psychic movement. Psychic gives itself for this work of the spirit, yeah, for the divine, in a way. But there is a but, of course, and Mother mentions this in conversations. She asks children, what for you need, what for you come to this yoga? What do you want from it? And then she starts talking. Do you want to serve humanity? Do you want to help everyone. She says it's not enough. It's not a sincere desire, it seems. It's not the psychic.
But I mean the everyday kind of moments, like when during the day you're trying to help somebody.
Right. No, that is something very, very different. Of course, if you have, in my view, if you, we cannot really discuss the thing which is happening in the particular moment of time. Yes, it depends where. If the psychic is there, it is there. So whatever you do, you may help or you may not help, but if it is psychic movement, then it is. So how can one judge that? I cannot. But we are speaking about principle here. Principle.
Yeah, but I also found that maybe you're right. I mean, what is really disturbing in the day-to-day action is this kind of pull towards helping or solving or doing or. So I thought maybe it's not so wrong to also not follow that impulse at all. Some impulse.
Yeah, I think both ways, either we follow it or not following it. If it is not psychic, it is not psychic. Yeah. So whether you do it or not, it would be no difference between the two. So it will be one. It will be tamasic. I would say better to follow it. Among those two which are not psychic, better to do things than not to do. In a way, a little better. That is what Krishna says. Better to do work than not to do work. Yeah? In the name of the Spirit. Because if in the name of the Spirit we have to do rather than not to do, then better to do. That's what Sri Krishna says. So in that sense, there is no harm in doing. In any case, nature will make us do. If you will not help others, you will help yourself, or you become tamasic, or you start stagnating, becoming useless for others and yourself, and then you fall into depression. So better to let energy flow, even vital energy, even natural energy, into action. And there are more chances to see the right thing. That's what Krishna says, at least. And I believe it is so. Because I went also through stagnation in Auroville by trying to meditate and to be with myself. And for years, and you go into your corner, you don't want to see others. And, I don't think it is the right way out. Mother created Auroville for karma yoga, for doing things. Only we should do it in a right spirit, with detachment from our desires, not from the action. Action is to be done, but we should do it without desires and see what happens. Doesn't matter whatever happens. You just do it and don't attach yourself to the fruit of action.
May I add something? I think in my life is very much in the world, not in retreat. To me, these shlokas talk about doing, but not to say being attached to the results. If I'm extremely caught up in the emotions of what I want and expect for a child or some relative or person, then there can be frustration and stagnation, and by not being attached, I give the other person the responsibility for their own life.
Yeah. And not only that, you are, strangely enough, in the state of some equilibrium and nearly happiness, which is not coming from the result. It comes from another source of being yourself, or being not your natural self, being your other self, which is beyond nature. It is felt once in a while that you are. You know, Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes when the action is done rightly, spiritually. He says the feeling comes that you do nothing. When the feeling is there that you do nothing, and you sit on, he has a very beautiful aphorism, you sit on the top of Himalayas, and you rule the worlds. You interfere into the historical events from the top of the mountains. And you feel at the same time that you do nothing. This is the right way of doing things. So to be totally engaged and at the same time to be totally free from the result. We feel sometimes when things happen right in our life, we feel that as if we didn't have anything from our side, as if it was made for us. We are totally free from the consequences, from the causes, from everything. It was meant to be. It happened to be. This is the right way. We have to cultivate this way. We have to be always free, whatever we do. All right.
I would just like to add a special thank because this shloka, this 625, or what was that you said, was the Vadamekum for attaining the nirvanic state. Yeah, 625. I took it up when I was in this Swami Vivekananda ashram yoga therapy clinic. I was telling you, I didn't know what it meant, but this was part of the preliminary chanting to the morning meditations, and I kept on chanting this in the morning for a couple of years without having no idea what it meant, but I found it so beautiful, and the sound and the vibration. Then I completely forgot about it, you know. And then I read it and I said, this is something I know. What was that? So thank you very much for bringing it back to me.
Well, it came back to you, yes. It was waiting to come back. And this idea of thinking of nothing, this is a profound idea, thinking of nothing. We don't have these ideas in Greek philosophy of thinking of nothing. This is typical Indian yoga. Or do we have? Do we have in Plato thinking of nothing? No, I don't think so. They are much more positivistic than Indians.
Can be, but I'll think about it if I find something that could be. Well, this idea of the absence of any passion, the absence of any reaction, of course, no, is very strong. Sri Aurobindo liked the Stoics very much, and I guess it's because of this, the ataraxia, apatheia. This apatheia literally means the absence of pathos, of this word passion comes, means to undergo, literally, not to be exposed to something you are taking. Is a passive state, per excellent, is the opposite of having mastery on. Is to.
So there is. Of course, there must be something there. Yeah.
So this idea in Stoicism and in Epicureanism, this idea of finding a state of absolute quietude with no emotion, no alteration of this inner balance, this is very strong. But if this is somehow, this is a form of wisdom, then if this is induced by managing in stopping the thoughts, this, yeah, I think is not really existing in the Greek word, because also this link in between the mental and the emotional seems to me very typical of the Indian tradition, right? That the emotional is mental somehow. So the thinking and the feeling are so deeply interconnected. So I don't think that this is more the knowledge of the fact that anyway it's better not to be exposed to the passions that leads to this calm, quietude, inner poise, but not the fact of having mastery on the thoughts.
Here, look, there is interesting. Manas is on one side. It has to be submerged into the self, but with the help of buddhi, which is fixing its higher connect or focus. So the buddhi has to hold the poise from which it could be viewed, and in the same sense, at the same time, the manas, the sense mind, has to be brought into connection with the self. And that is the way of not thinking anything. It's not just not thinking, it's not possible not to think. It is possible when manas is submerged into the self, only then. Self can take charge of the manas, and then there is silence there. But there is a poise of holding in the buddhi. This is interesting.
I would add that in history there is evidence of far more communication between philosophers in those ancient times. There were Greeks that went to India, and there were yogis and Buddhist missionaries who went to quote unquote the West, the Hellenic world. So when we see some similarities of ideas, there are reasons for that.
Definitely, no. The whole Greek tradition is coming from, as Sri Aurobindo says, from somewhere from Asia. Yeah? It is the same vision of a reality, only a bit differently spoken of, took its own form, but still it's very close. The ideas are very similar to the Aryan vision, Aryan tradition. Great. Okay, so we can stop here for today, and then we continue from the shloka 28, from 29. Okay, I close with mantra. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinaha sarve santu niramayaha sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om. All right. See you. See you.
Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.